Ladies and gentlemen, your hosts Kash, Patel, and Pam Bondi.
Welcome to the last and final Oscars in U.S. history. Y'all must be very proud of yourself. I bet you didn't expect us to be hosting. Now, if you will all take your seats while the bailiff locks the doors, we would like to read from our list. You're all under arrest.
Kyle and Garrett, I want to thank you both for being on the show. I know you both know each other very well. You both worked at the FBI, and you both made major news on this program this week. So thank you for coming back on and educating our audience. I want to start with you, Garrett. You said that you ruffled a lot of feathers earlier in the week by saying, yeah, the FBI may actively be destroying evidence. And lo and behold, brother, Pam Bondi is sitting there going, wait a second, they literally are telling me they have no Epstein evidence, that it's all gone. And it's like, man, I've never seen anybody proven right in a faster timeline than that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable, Benny, and thanks for having me and Kyle back on. But this is par for the course for us, the suspendables at this point. We have people on the inside who want to do the right thing. They're concerned on how to do it, what to tell, who to tell, how to get it out. And they see what's happened to us. Like I said, when I testified, the FBI will crush you. It will crush you and your family if you speak out about the wrongs that they are doing. We just continue to do what's right. We just continue to speak out about this wrongdoing. And again, like I said the other day with you, nobody should be surprised here. Of course, the FBI, the SDNY are destroying evidence. They're hiding evidence. They're not being honest with the administration. We're in the middle of an internal intelligence warfare or a coup. And we're seeing it play out just this week alone. We're seeing it.
Yes, it was neck snapping, pardon the pun. I know we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein, to see how right you were proven in just 72 hours. Because people were like laughing at you. And then lo and behold, here comes the top law enforcement in the country saying, nope, actually the FBI refuses to give me all of the evidence. Kyle, I have the evidence here. Lucky for us, the government took photos, and we're going to put some of them up. What you'll see here are just literally bags of hard drives, boxes worth of CDs, passports, diamonds. Some of them are literally, they make your job very easy, Kyle. Some of them are literally marked evidence. Here's a box of hard drives that have orange tape around them, marked evidence on them from inside of Jeffrey Epstein's apartment in New York. Yep. Where the hell is this stuff, guys?
I bet you we never see it. If I was going to guess, I bet you we never see it. What I do know right now, and I'll tell your audience exclusively because I don't think anybody else knows this, James Dennehy, who was mentioned on the previous clip with Jesse Waters, has been on a conference call on what's called Link. It's like an internal Skype type messenger service that the FBI has on the classified side. He's been in a call all morning long, hasn't logged off. We don't know what the contents of that call was, but he's been probably getting lambasted by folks in at headquarters down in Washington, D.C., telling him, reading the riot act because he's running an autonomous agency. And this is the problem. I actually heard you say it earlier about Pam Bondi being the top law enforcement officer in the country. I agree with that. That's what the Attorney General is supposed to be. I'm going to flip the table on you just a little bit, if you don't mind. What do you understand the agency that's known as the FBI to be? Who are they, and what is their mission set?
Well, you said on the show earlier, Kyle, that they're an intelligence agency.
Mm-hmm.
So
everybody has a hard time kind of taking that piece in because everything you know about television, everything you've ever seen presented, whether it's Silence of the Lambs or watching Keanu Reeves, I got a poster of that on my wall. I named my son Bodie, actually, after the good guy in Point Break who gets away from the FBI, which was an internal joke. I actually worked there when I did that. Like, everybody thinks that it's this law enforcement agency that runs down bad guys and gets bank robbers and captures and arrests terrorists and this kind of thing. And if you look at the thing, and I sent it over to your producer so they could see it, there is a thing called the DIOG. It's the Domestic Intelligence Operations Guide. It tells you who the FBI is. It is 825 pages of how to do your job as an FBI agent. And the first thing they list in the appendix is they tell you, number one, that they are an intelligence agency first. That is the primary role of the FBI, and that is a post 9/11 thing. It is not the way that it used to be, although there's always been an intelligence capability. And what you're seeing on the screen right there is Appendix G. Can you see anything of value on Appendix G right there?
Oh, looks blank.
It's a blank page because it's the only classified part of the entire document. Now, they redact some things that are for official use only, and so they don't give you examples of like what constitutes a deadly force scenario and some of the things that are just not really, they're kind of proprietary training. But the only thing that's really classified, as far as I know, are the classified provisions. And that piece right there, that little piece of paper, which has nothing on it, normally would have a paragraph if you were looking at it on the FBI server. It would have one paragraph that justifies in a single set, probably like 5 sentences, on how you can basically open a case on anybody that people are seeing on this screen right now. You could open a full intelligence investigation, and you can do it on most Americans with very, very little effort. And an intelligence agency doesn't need to find a crime. And the minute you realize that it's not about criminality, it's about information, you start realizing that what's going on in the field office in New York is protecting information. Because that's what the FBI does. And they don't think that you own it as a taxpayer. They don't think that I'm entitled to it. If you've ever done a FOIA request, I've actually got one sitting on my screen. We sued the FBI for an unclassified presentation where they made fun of Republicans, specifically the members of the 118th Congress. It was called Congressional Investigations by the 118th Congress into the FBI. They spent an hour making fun of the lawmakers that are supposed to have oversight of the FBI, and they lampooned it. I had somebody inside that meeting who reached out to me and said, the people who saw this meeting thought that even the lefties that were watching it were like, no adult reviewed this. No single grown-up looked at this and said, this is okay. You guys got to get a copy of it. And after a year of lawsuits, which I filed and we paid for, and we went through the FOIA process, we filed suit, and we got were the first like 90 seconds of the presentation, which was them setting up the podium and introducing that they're going to have a presentation. The rest of it is all redacted. I got the slide deck, which showed the opening slide and the questions and comments slide, nothing on the inside, because they do not feel accountable to the American people. That's what an intelligence agency does. Would you expect to see like revealed from the CIA? We shouldn't expect it because they're not going to give it to us. And that is that internal war that Garrett just talked about. That's the Civil War. It's the law enforcement capability. The people that signed up, like Garrett and I, that wanted to go enforce law and find bad guys, whether they be child sex traffickers or white collar criminals or anybody that's doing anything that's against federal law. That's the violations we came to do. And then there's a group of people that are the intel cadre, and they are doing a civil war right now. They are fighting for the status quo of the FBI so that they do not have to reveal what it is they do. And this is a post 9/11 legacy where the intel cadre took over. So it is captured at this point. And so the work of a Dan Bongino and a Kash Patel is not just counterinsurgency, it's counter coup. They're staging a coup. And right now they're on the beach. Like, imagine if this was a war, they are trying to get dry land footing, like landing at a beach. And right now that is what's happening. We're seeing the fight back. And right now, if you also think about it, the FBI is undefeated against FBI directors. Either they are set up and run by like a J. Edgar Hoover type, or the FBI maintains the status quo and runs the director. And they always have. They ran Chris Wray. They ran Jim Comey. They ran Mueller. They made those guys the thing that they wanted. The FBI is not run by the FBI director.
I've just never, in all of the scandals that we've covered, and everything that you just said here, Kyle, is shocking, and I have a ton of follow-up questions. To both of your points, prima facie, I've never seen anything so egregious. We have footage right here on the footage that should have never been public, right? That's a dude flying a drone of the FBI raiding Epstein's island with the New York Police Department, all right? You can see their shiny vests. And these bros in this frame, and I'll let it play, they're carrying out they have an entire human army carrying out boxes of information.
Yep.
You can see the FBI carrying the physical information from Jeffrey Epstein's pedo island. And then they're just going to lie. They're just going to straight up lie to Pam Bondi and actually humiliate her, which is what makes my blood boil. They embarrassed her.
They don't feel accountable. They don't feel accountable to the attorney general. If I'm going to give advice to Kash Patel, I'll do it just here, like to everybody. Please. This is what should happen. Kash should jump on that plane, which we talked about last time. He can get on there and he could be in New York in a few minutes.
Yes.
He needs to go up there, take James Dennehy, who's been on a conference call and resisting, apparently, like releasing any of this information. He needs to stand in his office and give him a direct order, open up the file that covers all of these investigations in Sentinel, which is the record-keeping sort of system of records for the computer. Pull it up and go serial by serial. And every single person that approved a serial is an entry, whether it be an interview, whether it be a piece of evidence, every single person that was involved in this case, whether they're an evidence technician, whether they were an SOS, like some kind of an analytical personnel, whether they were an intelligence analyst or the FBI case agent who was working on it. Any person that did an interview, that collected evidence, that did anything that has their name on it needs to be called into a conference room, whatever field office they're in. And if there's a retired person that's in there and they've left the bureau, send somebody to their house to hang out with them and get the answers like by the end of the day. Because what you saw was the attorney general, what you said is the top law enforcement person in this country.
Constitutionally, I'm not wrong.
That's how it plays. No, you're not wrong.
Right.
You're 100% correct. I'm not faulting your logic. What I'm faulting is that the FBI doesn't believe that, as you've seen by their evidence of their behavior. So we can look at it and expect that they're not going to listen until they are put to a decision for all their chips. And by the way, if James Dennehy doesn't want to do it, that's insubordination. You're terminated. We've just moved you down. You can go and live in Puerto Rico for the rest of your term until we can get rid of you. Go hang out there. There's tons of crime. We're going to bring in the next person. We're going to bring in a special agent in charge of whatever the top rank is there, probably counterintelligence. Why don't you go and open that file up? Oh, you don't want to do it? You're out of here too. You can walk through until you find someone who's going to say yes. By the way, that won't take more than like 2 tops. There's plenty of people there that can open that file up and sit there with somebody over their shoulder like Kash or Dan Bongino and says, open the damn file up and give us what we want. You have no right to withhold it from the attorney general. Does the public necessarily have a right to have it? Maybe not. I can see that. Ongoing case, prosecutions, no big deal. But Pam Bondi shouldn't be in a position where she doesn't get to see every single thing there. If she's the attorney general and she runs this organization, that's how it works. This is an executive agency that goes under the president. It goes to the AG, FBI director, and the people who work for the FBI director have a duty to follow lawful orders. And that is a lawful order. Open up the case file and give it to the person who is the lead prosecutor in this country, period.
Here's James Dennehy. It's amazing. It's prophetic almost.
Kind of looks like John Cena, doesn't he?
Our studio director, Killer Klein, saying it. Just thinking, looks like a John Cena. So you have James Dennehy right there. Okay, all right.
That was completely Jarrett. Shame on you. Why are you copying my move?
Does John Cena follow you guys on X yet? He follows a lot of people.
We know each other well, Benny.
So here we go. Would love to have James Dennehy on the show. Would love to have John Cena on the show. Maybe they could come on and we can we can do a DNA test.
Yeah.
Here's this article. This isn't a recent article. This is an article from 3.5 weeks ago. FBI in battle with Trump amid purge of officials. Top agent warns staff. This was like the first days of the Trump administration. They're saying that James Dennehy is giving a giant middle finger to Trump, saying I'm actually in charge and you have no power here. So it does seem like you guys, it does seem like they've sort of found the cluster of the fifth column and where it's operating.
Let's throw a couple other pieces about James Dennehy. So he used to be in charge of the Newark field office. He was the leak to Cory Booker that was in the meetings saying that Kash Patel was the guy who was directing. So he was the last quote unquote whistleblower that was trying to derail his confirmation. Okay. And I had this from multiple sources that know him. People that have worked in New York and have worked in Newark and know what his story is. He was going to Cory Booker. He was proud of having that relationship back and forth. So he was trying to derail Kash Patel from the beginning. The fact that he's in charge of a field office today is absurd. You can't have people that work against the director who's now in, knowing that he might be taking look, if you take a shot at the king, you're not supposed to survive if you miss. This guy missed. You don't get to survive when you were actively trying to usurp the guy coming in and being sworn in.
A big piece of this too, Benny, is the president has unilateral authority over security clearances. We saw it on day one. He revoked the security clearances of the 51 spies who lie. He can suspend, revoke a guy like Jim Dennehy's clearance right now. That being said, he can also reinstate a clearance like for a Kyle Seraphin or for a Garrett O'Boyle. He has very broad authority to do something like that. We saw this insubordination from the beginning. Another thing from the FBI is they call the New York field office the New York Mafia. If you ever meet somebody from a New York field who started their career in the New York field office or they cycle through there again, they stick together and they try to run the FBI the New York way. And we see right off the bat, the leader, quote unquote leader of the New York field office stepping in and trying to interfere with what the people of America want, with what we voted for.
Yes.
We voted for Donald Trump. The royal we voted for Donald Trump. We voted for change. We voted for an FBI to stop with the weaponization. That includes somebody like a Jim Dennehy deliberately interfering with that mandate. And now you have Pam Bondi and Kash Patel stuck in the middle of it. We need to start seeing proverbial heads roll. And I submit to you that Jim Dennehy should be the first to go.
They're fighting an uphill battle. You got to understand this. Like I said, they're trying to gain a dry land footing. Like imagine you're taking a beach at Omaha. Like they're literally doing a landing on a foreign power, which is the FBI. It is internally powerful and it has a status quo and an inertia that has been doing what it does for now 20 something years. And the people that have elevated up to the top of this, they've all worked in the counterintelligence sphere and they all think that they have a right to work in this particular way. And they don't particularly care about the Bill of Rights and what we've seen. That's why we had violations of the First Amendment. People may not know, but the stuff that Garrett and I exposed were primarily First Amendment violations. We came forward and showed that we were going to see the FBI surveilling parents at school board meetings. My issue wasn't that you can't do that as an FBI agent. There's actually parameters under which you could if they violated federal law, if they were making interstate threats, for example. But what you can't have is the attorney general go in front of Congress and say they're not doing it when the FBI is doing it. My allegation, which was a good faith option, saying I thought Merrick Garland stood up there and said something false to Congress. What if he didn't? What if he actually didn't know and the FBI was actually doing what they wanted? It still means that my allegation was in good faith. But the fact of the matter is that the FBI is more than willing to go out there and investigate Catholics and say, you know what, you're into Latin Mass? Because this is one of the other things that we put forward. Oh, you're into the Latin Mass? Yeah, you might be a white supremacist. Which, by the way, you're allowed to be a white supremacist in America. We're not going to be friends with them. None of us on this panel are going to be there. But you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to be an a-hole in America. Like, welcome to reality. It's a bummer. That's what freedom looks like. You know, there's going to be people who have things that don't agree with you. The FBI doing things the FBI way because the FBI wants to do it that way is not allowed. That's not what anyone signs up for. And you don't swear loyalty to the institution, as my buddy Rob Green says. You're supposed to swear loyalty to the Constitution. And when we say the government, what we mean most of the time is the executive branch, which means you work for the president. And the president is the person that is representing the will of the people, at least in the mass. That's the way we're set up. This is not that crazy. For all of the talking points about a constitutional crisis that I heard from the political left over the last couple of weeks, constitutional crisis because we're stopping foreign aid or some crazy thing. A constitutional crisis is when you have branches of government or you have agencies within the government that think they are accountable to their own mission that they created for themselves and not to the priorities of the person that's actually elected to run them. It's absolutely bonkers. And this is kind of the reason why the two of us, it's why Garrett doesn't have a voice right now. It's because we've been shouting at this for about 2 or 3 years now. We're just yelling it to anybody that'll hear it. You're talking about an intelligence agency. They're not going to go without a fight. And you're seeing that fight right now.
I'm not sure if it can be this easy because clearly it can't. Here's a document saying that Jeffrey Epstein is an FBI informant. And you got to chill out on this guy. Got to let him walk because he's going to continue to provide help to us that we have agreed upon. So we're going to let him skate on these child molestation charges. And this was from Palm Beach, and even Alex Acosta, when asked about this, who was the man who let Epstein walk, said, yeah, we had him dead to rights, and the powers that be, a higher power, he called it, came in and said, let him free. Is it that easy, guys? Is that what's actually happening here? Is that why James Dennehy is not opening up the drawer? Is it literally this simple that Epstein was working as an intel asset?
It's in the dialogue I shared with you guys. There's an entire section called otherwise illegal activities. And so one of the things that you can do as the executive is you have the unilateral authority to decide whether or not you're going to prosecute someone for violations of federal law. Which is the funniest thing. You saw the left crying about the fact that they said that there's presidential immunity and the president within the scope of his job can do a lot of different things. One of those things that they never cry about is the ability for the FBI to go out there and decide whether or not they're going to prosecute people or authorize what's called otherwise illegal activity. That means you can go and help start a riot if you want. That means that you might be able to go buy drugs or sell drugs or sell guns or engage in some version of sex trafficking. The FBI operates half the websites that are doing child pornography on the dark web. They're operating it because they're trying to catch the people that are going looking for it and trying to stop them. But what happens when those things have a life of their own or they're not well managed, and then you're actually complicit in doing things that are evil or terroristic or providing weapons to people? Like, we've seen the government is not necessarily great at doing things like that. Go look at the kind of the buy walk program where they had guns going down into Mexico. Federal officers were killed for it. So there are all kinds of screw ups. And yeah, it can be just that easy. You're like, okay, well, he's my source. He's going to give us more information. It's more important to get the information that he has access to. You can write that off with a stroke of a pen. That's the United States attorney's decision. Easy. Or it goes up to an attorney general, or it goes up to somebody in DOJ that doesn't make it to the attorney general that's actually calling the shots, like we've seen Lisa Monaco doing for the last couple of years.
Does that, Garrett, explain why they are withholding evidence? Because they continue, as is written right here in 2008, they are continuing to protect their source, Jeffrey Epstein?
I think it absolutely plays a role in it. I think because of the classification issue that Kyle brought up with Appendix G, the government, the FBI in this case, is saying that you, Benny, and all your listeners and anybody who might have an interest in what their government is actually doing, the government is now saying, we're not going to tell you that because you're just a sheep and it's national security and we have to keep you safe. And so just move along, sheep, and go graze in your grass and and don't worry, just let the adults do all the things and you don't worry about it and we're going to keep it secret from you forever. So with this particular instance, OIA, otherwise illegal activity, absolutely could have been authorized in this instance. Even I would be surprised if they authorized something like child porn or pedophilia, but I wouldn't put it past them, depending on how deep of an asset or an informant a guy like Epstein was. There's this great podcast series out there by Martyrmade. He did a long series on Epstein. It's certainly worth listening to get the background with his ties to Mossad. And now we know that he was also an FBI informant. So who knows what type of authorizations they were giving him. And then most of it, they're going to keep classified. And now you have an FBI who's going to step in to bridge the legal authorities that they are supposed to abide by. They're going to step in the way of those and not provide the information, force Pam Bondi to send out that letter to Kash Patel yesterday and just try to stop the legal obligations that they have as being part of the executive branch.
Two quick follow-up questions for you gentlemen. And this conversation is absolutely fascinating. I really appreciate the force and the muscular understanding of these systems and the docket of how the FBI trains their agents. And it's really revealing. Question number one. What was, if you were to just have to say it on a live stream with hundreds of thousands of people watching, what was Epstein to the FBI? Why the protection racket around him? What are they protecting? What was happening here? If you were to give your best estimation.
Garrett, you want to go first? Or you want me to jump?
You jump.
I don't know what he was. And I'll tell you why I think it's even more dangerous is because you've got the FBI admitting to something that they don't do, which is to say that somebody was working as a source. They, generally speaking, will not actually come out and say that sort of a thing. The files that exist inside the FBI to say who is and who is not a source are actually limited to the case handler, the supervisor of the handler, and then somebody called the confidential source coordinator, which is like one person in each field office. So the source room knows, but even the agents working next to you may not know who your sources are that you're running. They don't put the stuff into paper in a normal system. It stays outside of the normal file. It's actually called Delta. That's the name of the file system, which is separate from the case file that I referred to earlier called Sentinel. So if they're putting that out there, to me, it almost looks like misdirection. Like they're acknowledging asset status on behalf of somebody else. Because why would the FBI actually is really, really reticent to give up sources in that way. I would not be shocked to find out, especially after seeing what they did with the Twitter files, where the FBI was what did Taibbi call them? The belly button, where they were interfacing on behalf of all the other intelligence apparatus. We've got like 17 different agencies that fall into what's called the IC or the intelligence community. Can the FBI go out there because they are a forward-looking, they are a public entity? The joke is that if you work for the FBI, you're not a secret agent, you're a special agent, even though I used to tell people I was a secret agent. It's much funnier, it's stupider. All the stuff I worked on said secret. If you're going to go in front on behalf of it, there's an ongoing relationship between the FBI and the CIA. We trade agents to go over there and train as case handlers, to learn how to become case officers, to recruit people. So would it be just as easy to be able to say FBI because it's a lot less negative or nefarious than saying this person was working on behalf of CIA? Because the CIA has totally different means of gathering, and they don't have any of the constitutional restraints. That dialogue that I sent you guys, that 825 pages, the rule book, it doesn't exist for the CIA. It also doesn't exist for people that work under DHS. Homeland Security Investigations doesn't have that same problem. So if you were going to go and put somebody into a legitimate status as a source and you wanted to cover that up, wouldn't you want to go with the people that are the most public? Like everybody knows who the FBI is. And I guarantee you, most of your audience thinks that it's a law enforcement thing and not an intelligence thing. So is it real plausible that this guy is working on behalf of any number of government agencies, as Jesse Waters sort of intimated? We don't know. But what we do know is that a lot of very powerful people have been implicated. And there were boxes and boxes of evidence that was paraded around on television and photographs, as you just showed. And like I said, I don't think we're going to see any of them. They're hoping a couple of things. One, that we're all going to just shut up. Two, that they can either explain it away or just keep it. Like, what recourse do you have or do I have to be able to expose that? They can't even get the assistant director of the New York field office to follow the boss of the FBI and his boss, the Attorney General of the United States, to even turn over this stuff. If you can't get people in the field office to do what you said when they work for you, how the hell are the American people going to do this thing? Right. So I just think that what we're seeing is just exactly the same thing. And look, rather than go down like some kind of rabbit hole, like we've already looked at what the Kennedy stuff is, right? The Kennedy assassination files were ordered. I'm pretty sure I saw the executive order saying declassify them. And there's still going to be a discussion of whether they come out or not. What equities could possibly exist after 63 years that are going to be something that are going to keep us from it? And the answer ends up being that the intelligence communities do not believe that you're entitled to that information, as Garrett said earlier. They just don't think you have a right to it. And you also don't have any mechanism to compel them. None. You don't have the ability to do it. They literally, you can go for FOIA and they'll claim one of 20 different exceptions to FOIA. If you go in there under privacy requests, even if you're the person in the file, they'll find a reason because of an open investigation and they won't give it to you. If you have members of Congress ask for oversight, they say you're not read in, you're not privy to this information, you're not part of that compartment. So this is an unaccountable, unelected series. Literally, when people say the word deep state, I think it's too sexy. It's not the right word. It's administrative state. It's administrators hiding behind policy to hide really dastardly nefarious workings that are essentially not working on behalf of Americans. They're working on behalf of the mission they wrote for themselves. Yeah, I'll give you one last little thing that'll blow your mind. Did you know that while Donald Trump was president in September of 2020, when Donald Trump was president in 2020, between September 3rd and September 7th, the FBI took the number one core value that was the listed at the top of the poster when Garrett and I came in. And it said that your number one job, the core value of the FBI, is to have rigorous obedience to the Constitution of the United States. That was the number one. And somewhere between September 3rd and September 7th of 2020, they deprioritized that to number 8. And things like diversity and respect were put above it. I kid you not. This stuff happened in real time, and since we've been paying attention to it, they've gone like from a quiet kind of nefarious purpose to an overt loud thing, and they announced it in their corporate sort of like bylines.
Here's another facet for people to consider too. People might be wondering, guys, where are the whistleblowers like you? Why isn't somebody coming forward and blowing the whistle on this Epstein stuff? The case agent, people who are intimately involved with the evidence collection and reviewing the evidence. Well, it's all classified. So good luck trying to make a protected disclosure about something that's classified.
They won't take it.
Congress isn't interested in it. They kind of poo-poo it and say, oh, the mechanisms we're going to have to go through. We're going to have to unmask your name. And even when I was making my protected disclosures as an FBI agent, I said, that's fine. I don't care if my name is known because this information is so important to the American people. Over the summer, we heard Kash Patel say if he was in charge of the FBI, that he would set up a round-the-clock office to declassify information. It's another thing that he could do, or that the president really could order to do. Because like I said earlier, he's got that unilateral authority over classification issues. Now, still, we're going to run into the problem of a Jim Dennehy in New York trying to get in the way of all of that, but it could be a start. And then here's a simple example to what Kyle was just talking about. We learned over this summer as well, this is a personal example, we got a subpoena notice from Apple. They subpoenaed my wife's Apple account to try to get information about me. And we saw on there, once we learned of it, which they sent the subpoena nearly a year ahead of time, or at least 6 months ahead of time. And we saw on there that it was, guess where, Benny? The New York field office, the New York Mafia again. So we called them up, and I got this recorded too. We recorded the call, and we said, who are you? What's your name? They refused to give us their names. They said that they don't have to. It goes to what we've been talking about this whole time. They are unaccountable. And they say, I can give you my number. And they gave us a couple numbers of the couple different people we talked to, and they told us FOIA the information, and essentially hung up on us. And I think I talked about it last time I was on. If they're willing to do this to their own employees, what worse are they willing to do to you or to other people out there?
Garrett, you made huge national news on the show earlier this week saying the FBI has a secret server that they may be systematically destroying evidence in a way that there would be absolutely no forensics left and we wouldn't be able to actually get the evidence ever. Do you believe that we will ever see the Epstein evidence? Is there a situation like that that is currently occurring? What do your sources say?
I don't know if there's a situation currently occurring along those lines. As far as Epstein goes, I'm not holding my breath. Their heads have to roll again, proverbially. People need to be removed. People need to be fired. They need to be brought up on criminal charges for interfering with the chief executive, the president. And we haven't seen it yet. Will we see it? Kyle mentioned that Jim Dennehy has been on this call all morning. So it goes back to his email he sent before Kash was even the director, that he's going to dig in. He's been dug in for a long time, and he's going to stay dug in as long as he can.
I think we got to acknowledge that the entire story of Epstein, because it is so salacious and it involves underage girls and it involves sex, which is always lurid, and people in high power. It's a shiny object in many ways. It's a laser dot on the ground. We're chasing it like a cat because it's like, well, give us the files. First of all, if your audience got access to the files, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to do prosecutions? I don't care about the files. I got to be totally honest with you. I don't care about the files. I don't need to see any of the evidence. What I want to see is announced indictments. They can even be done under seal. I want to know about arrests that are getting done, even if I don't know the names of the people. And I want to see people brought to justice. That's what we really want, if we're being honest about it. The files are like a distraction. And so people getting sort of distracted by the idea of like, how come we can't see the files? Like, it doesn't matter. You can't see a lot of files. There's all kinds of prosecutions that you don't get access to. And it doesn't matter to you. What you want to see is justice. That's what Americans are really looking for, justice and accountability. And are we going to see that? Maybe not. As Garrett appropriately pointed out, the most dangerous piece is all they do is slap that classification on there. And the minute that somebody goes forward with something like that, they're arrested. Because their last name isn't Clinton. They're going to go to jail for that. They're going to spend time for violating the NDA for national security. You're going to be exposing either sources and methods or whatever else is out there, and you're going to do time for it. And we will see prosecutions of that, because what we have seen is that people actually do pay for bringing this information forward. They'll have their careers destroyed. There are people that have brought forward information, and there's no mechanism by which a guy who did the job that I did, the job that Garrett did as an FBI agent, you don't have a route to go to Congress. It was weird in the first place for me to go to Congress. And for whatever it's worth, Benny, I brought information about the attorney general potentially lying in front of Congress to my congresswoman in October of like the third week of October of 2021. And by November 23rd, I was told I couldn't come back into the office. And by the second week of November, I got a phone call from somebody in an office, actually Garrett's old field office, who was a friend of mine that I'd never met in person, and nobody had any way to know that we were friends. And he had gotten a call from Washington, D.C. saying, hey, we got a problem out in Albuquerque division. We got this guy. They didn't name me. And he's refusing to get the COVID shot. And he's also a whistleblower. What should we do with him? So they knew that I had blown the whistle on this thing within 2 weeks. And all I did was print off an email and take it to a member of Congress. And it was public to the people in the FBI in the legal division who were looking to punish me right away. How do people understand that scrutiny? And the other thing is this, it's really, really obvious to those of us that are sitting here. And I know Garrett's feeling it intensely because he's 29 months now. He's still technically an FBI agent if you ask the FBI. He's not been paid. He doesn't have a badge and a gun. He's not allowed to do the job, but they consider him an employee. If he wants to go get another job, he's going to get fired from the FBI, who hasn't paid him in over like 2.5 years. And the craziest piece of it is they saw what happened to Garrett. They saw what happened to me. You know, the biggest cost to both of us was our anonymity, because you never heard of me before I went and talked to Dan Bongino on a podcast in September of 22. You never heard of me on purpose. I had a dad who was in radio for my whole life when I was growing up. If I wanted to go sit in front of a microphone, I would have done it a long time ago. I didn't want to do it until our family was at risk. And so you can just look at what FBI agents didn't do to protect guys like Garrett or myself who knew us. What will they do to protect an American person? They're telling us that they swear their life, and I've already told you they've de-escalated the obedience to the Constitution piece. We saw during the COVID nonsense exactly what it looks like. If they're not going to lose their job over doing the right thing, you think they're going to lose their life over it? Absolutely not. There it is. There's the piece. I think that looks like my work over there. I feel like I've done that on Twitter. It's troubling stuff, though. I mean, core values actually mean something to the people who put it out. Whether or not it means something to the people that are getting the reading, it's another animal. But look what's in front of it. You put fairness and diversity over the top of the Constitution in America?
An image says it all. This image says it all. Also, the images of all of the evidence that they have. And now they are defying the Attorney General and spitting in the face of the American people.
Yeah, they told you who they are. Just believe them. That's all. That's all we're asking people to do.
So, okay. Very interesting. Boys, I got to tell you, this has been, I like sitting back and actually like absorbing all the information. You both bring so much to bear on all this, and we really appreciate it. I hope you are back on the show with regularity. Please, everybody, follow Kyle and follow Garrett. You can find them here on X. They have great followings, and they're two guys who didn't want the spotlight, but were willing to speak up. Very, very rare at the FBI, and we appreciate your education of this audience for what's actually happening. And the beachhead man, I think we're going to take it. I really do.
I hope so. I'm praying for it. I really am. And I know Garrett is too.
I like that metaphor. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you.
You bet.
Godspeed.